Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
A Texas man was reportedly foiled by a bit of well-deserved instant karma this week when he was allegedly caught impersonating a police officer after unwittingly attempting to pull over a pair of real deputies. The whole thing began sometime on April 13th when a pair of Harris County deputies were undercover while working a racing event in Houston's Memorial area. The deputies were driving around when suddenly they saw a white Hyundai Santa Fe behind them. The vehicle was equipped with red and blue flashing lights and was clearly trying to pull them over. Of course, being that they were real deputies, the undercover officers immediately realized that something was off. The Santa Fe did not appear to be a legitimate Harris County police vehicle. They immediately notified the sheriff's office, who sent marked units to investigate. As soon as the marked units showed up, the driver of the Santa Fe, later identified as Sean Arnold, allegedly attempted to flee the scene. He was quickly stopped, at which point things got even more interesting. Not only was Arnold dressed in a uniform shirt, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, a body-worn camera, and had a security badge. He was also carrying a BB gun, taser, police radios, and other equipment which were clearly supposed to make him look like a real officer. He was placed under arrest and charged with impersonating a police officer and being a felon in possession of body armor. According to reports, this is far from Arnold's first similar offense. He has multiple arrests for impersonating officers in Texas, Illinois, and Missouri, and also has convictions for several offenses including theft of motor vehicles. Because of the circumstances, Harris County authorities say that it's likely there are other people that Arnold may have victimized or attempted to victimize while pretending to be an officer. They are now urging anyone who might have had such interactions with him to please come forward.
Representatives from Ontario's Peel Regional Police released a major update in a high-profile theft case this week, announcing that they had officially charged 9 people in connection with a massive gold heist last year at the country's largest airport. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you might remember that we covered this story when it initially happened. If you recall, it began on the afternoon of April 17, 2023, when a valuable shipment landed at Lester B. Pearson International Airport. The flight had arrived from Zurich, Switzerland, and on board were 6,600 bars of pure gold, as well as more than $1.8 million US in various currencies. The gold weighed over 400 kilograms, or about 900 pounds, and was worth an estimated $14.5 million US. The shipment was being handled by Air Canada, and after landing was taken to the airline's cargo terminal. That evening, employees from the cash handling company Brinks showed up to transport the shipment to its final destination. However, when they arrived, they discovered that all of the cash and gold was missing. At the time of our first report last year, this is basically all we knew. The massive haul of precious cargo had clearly been stolen and was referred to as the largest gold heist in Canadian history. However, no other information was really available. Well, that all changed this week when Peel Regional Police announced charges against 9 people who are now accused of either directly participating in or facilitating the massive theft. Authorities now allege that several hours after the gold and currency arrived at the Air Canada terminal, a truck driver showed up at the facility and presented an airway bill. This bill was reportedly legitimate, though it was a duplicate of one for a seafood delivery the day before. Still, it was apparently enough to allow the driver to gain access to the airline's warehouse, where the gold and currency was loaded onto the truck. The driver then simply drove off. Police were able to track the vehicle during their investigation as far as the city of Milton, though it appears that this is where they lost the trail. Once the cash and gold had been successfully stolen, authorities say that the gold was melted down so it could be more easily disposed of. The valuables were then funneled into other illegal activities, in particular, illegal firearms trafficking. The driver, who is now accused of originally picking up the stolen cargo, was later arrested in Pennsylvania when police found 65 firearms in his rental car. It's alleged that the man, 25-year-old Durant King McLean, was planning to smuggle these across the border. In addition to this, police say that through the course of their investigation, they recovered around $315,000 in cash and 6 pure gold bracelets, as well as smelting pots, casts, and molds. It appears that the bulk of these stolen goods are still missing, though. The other 8 people charged in connection with the crime so far have been identified as 40-year-old Amit Jalota, 43-year-old Ahmad Chowdhury, 37-year-old Ali Raza, 36-year-old Archit Grover, 32-year-old Arsalan Chowdhury, 54-year-old Parmpal Sidhu, and 31-year-old Simran Panesar. Several of the accused remain on the run at the time of this recording, with Canada-wide warrants issued for their arrests. This includes Simran Panesar, who was working as a manager at the Air Canada facility where the crime took place. He allegedly gave police a tour of the warehouse after the heist, though disappeared after suddenly resigning last summer. Parmpal Sidhu is another Air Canada employee who is accused of helping to pull off the theft from the inside. Police say that this is likely how the driver was able to present a legitimate airway bill, as this could have only been printed from within one of the airline's own facilities. Despite this, Air Canada has denied that they are in any way responsible for what happened, rejecting all claims made in a lawsuit by Brinks that any careless or improper conduct contributed to the theft. That lawsuit is still ongoing. Currently, the investigation into the heist continues, and police are still on the hunt for the remaining suspects.
Authorities in Louisiana's Tangipahoa parish say that a 49-year-old man is facing murder charges this week, nearly a month and a half after he allegedly killed his estranged wife in her own home, a crime that was reportedly preceded by a terrifying campaign of stalking and intimidation. The whole thing started sometime last year when 45-year-old Lisa Hernandez decided to separate from her 49-year-old husband, David. As Lisa tried to move on with her life, David's behavior apparently became increasingly threatening and unhinged. He reportedly began stalking her, doing things like showing up at her workplace unannounced and sending her bouquets of lilies, which she was highly allergic to. Things took a tragic turn on March 20th of this year when police were called to Lisa's residence off of Meadowwood Drive in the city of Ponchatoula. It was here at around 9 p.m. that they discovered the 45-year-old's badly beaten body lying on her bedroom floor beneath her bed and dresser. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Though Lisa's house showed signs of having been ransacked because of his behavior in the lead-up to the murder, David Hernandez almost immediately became a suspect. Detectives became even more suspicious of the 49-year-old when a tracking device found on Lisa's car was traced back to him. The most damning evidence by far, however, was found when authorities recovered video surveillance footage of David Hernandez taken shortly after Lisa had been killed. In the video, the 49-year-old was on the Causeway Bridge and was dumping several items into Lake Pontchartrain. When police divers went into the water, they were reportedly able to recover these items, which were allegedly taken from Lisa's house, and included a hammer that they believe was used to kill her. On April 15th, David was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Police allege that he killed Lisa and tried to stage the crime scene to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. At the time of this recording, the 49-year-old remains in custody.
A Florida bus driver's bizarre revenge plot reportedly landed him in hot water this week after he allegedly tried to get back at a fellow guest at the hotel where he was staying, but instead caused the entire building to be evacuated. The whole thing started sometime on the night of April 12th when employees at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in the city of DeLand contacted local authorities about an alarming situation that was happening there. Multiple guests were complaining of an acid or gas-like smell coming from the hotel's second floor. The substance was powerful enough that it was causing people to cough, and a few were even having difficulty breathing. When emergency responders arrived at the scene, more than 100 guests were evacuated so that a proper sweep of the hotel could be conducted. Fortunately, no hazardous gas was found in the air. However, firefighters did discover something else. A mysterious orange chemical that had stained parts of the walls on the second floor. It turned out to be pepper spray. After reviewing surveillance footage from the hotel, authorities were quickly able to discover what had happened. They watched as a man wearing a black hat, polo shirt, and pants walked into the hallway where the smell had first been noticed and began to spray the walls and floors with something inside of a canister. Employees immediately recognized this man as a bus driver who had been staying at the hotel with a baseball team. He was identified as 59-year-old Daniel Young. When police found Young, he was sitting in the parking lot behind the wheel of his charter bus, allegedly wearing the same clothes as the man in the video footage. He allegedly admitted to pepper spraying the hallway of the second floor of the hotel, though proceeded to offer a bizarre excuse for his actions. The 59-year-old explained that he had been staying at the Holiday Inn for about a month, and that throughout this time, the guest in the room above him had been making a lot of noise. This had interfered with his sleep, and he complained to employees, but said that the situation continued. That night, he had decided to take matters into his own hands. He said he used the pepper spray, hoping, quote, it would cause irritation to the second-floor guest and stop the noise above his room. Afterwards, he threw the pepper spray canister away behind the building, where it was later recovered by police. Young was arrested following his confession and charged with criminal mischief and possession of a weapon by a convicted felon. According to reports, the hotel had to be evacuated for over 2 hours because of the whole ordeal, and at least one person was hospitalized due to their exposure to the pepper spray.
An affidavit was released to the public that looks pretty embarrassing for one Indiana woman this week. One that reveals that she was recently charged after she tried to report her drug dealer to police because of a suspicious batch of meth she bought. According to the probable cause affidavit, the whole thing started sometime on January 10, 2024, when dispatchers with the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office received 2 911 calls in relatively quick succession. Both calls came from the same address in the city of Bedford. However, no one answered when 911 operators attempted to speak with the caller. In order to make sure everything was okay, police were sent to the home in question, where they eventually met with one of the residents there, 34-year-old Sarah Harris. She not only admitted to making the calls, she soon revealed the bizarre reason why. The 34-year-old said she bought a bad batch of meth and she wanted to turn in her dealer. Harris went on to explain that the previous day, she went to an acquaintance's house where she smoked what she described as a normal bowl of methamphetamine. However, after purchasing more and taking it home, she snorted some of it only to find it made her feel weird. The 34-year-old stated that she, quote, noticed something different when it touched her skin and nostrils. She said she felt she needed to stand up or she was going to have a heart attack. This had lasted for several hours. Harris was angry because she felt like the meth she bought wasn't what it was supposed to be, and she now said she wanted to press charges against her dealer. When asked if she still had any of the drugs left, Harris apparently turned over a small baggie of the crystalline substance. Police tested it, and afterwards had some good and bad news for the 34-year-old. The good news was that the bag Harris bought really did contain methamphetamine. The bad news was that the bag Harris bought really did contain methamphetamine, meaning that she had now confessed to purchasing and using illegal drugs. Harris was arrested and has since been charged with possession. Apparently, she has a list of previous convictions which include more possession offenses, as well as theft, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, resisting, and operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated.
Authorities in Gonzales County, Texas, released a major update in a more than 2-year-old murder investigation this week, announcing that they believe they have now finally uncovered the disturbing truth behind the crime. The whole thing began sometime back on January 18th, 2022, when police were contacted by a man who identified himself as the owner of the Lazy J RV park in the community of Nixon. The man said that he received reports that one of his tenants, 32-year-old Brandon Raspberry, hadn't showed up to work in a couple of days. The owner went to the trailer to check on Brandon, but received no answer when he knocked at the door. Out of concern, he proceeded inside, where he found the 32-year-old dead in his bed. When investigators arrived at the scene, they confirmed the grisly discovery. Brandon had been killed by a single gunshot wound to the head. It was estimated that he had been dead for roughly 2 days before being found. Another bullet had been fired into a couch inside the trailer, and this, along with other evidence, was sent away for testing. Unfortunately, none of it pointed to a suspect. It wasn't until last week, on April 12th, that authorities finally made a serious break in the case. It came when they were contacted by a principal with the local school board who informed them of an unsettling incident that had taken place on one of the district's buses. A 10-year-old boy had threatened to hurt and kill another student. When he was questioned about what had happened afterwards, the boy made a shocking admission. He said that he had already shot and killed someone a couple of years earlier. When Gonzales County detectives questioned the child themselves, the boy allegedly provided more details, saying that the incident had happened on January 16, 2022, just as police had suspected. The boy explained that at the time he had been visiting his grandfather at the RV park, and on the day in question he had grabbed his grandfather's gun from the glove box of his truck. He then went into Brandon's trailer, where he found him asleep. He shot him in the head, killing him before firing another round into the couch. He then took the gun and put it back where he had found it. Chillingly, when asked about a motive, the child didn't appear to have one. He stated that he didn't know Brandon, wasn't mad at him, and hadn't done anything to him to provoke the shooting. The boy was just 7 years old at the time he allegedly carried out the murder. Following this confession, authorities were reportedly able to track down the gun used in the crime at a pawn shop in the area. It was tested against evidence found at the scene and determined to be a match. Because of a state law that sets the age of criminal responsibility at 10 years old, authorities say that the boy cannot be charged with killing Brandon. However, he remains in custody over the more recent threatening incident on the bus and is currently awaiting a court date.
Authorities in Birmingham, Alabama say that a 37-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after the remains of his girlfriend were found inside the trunk of her own vehicle last week, a crime which police say was a cold-blooded murder. According to reports, the disturbing situation began shortly before 2 a.m. on April 11th when Birmingham police received a call about a two-car collision near a cemetery at the intersection of 6th Avenue Southwest and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. By the time officers arrived at the scene, only one vehicle was still there. However, there was evidence that something sinister had taken place. The abandoned car had signs of damage, and a single pink sneaker had been left on the ground. A witness filled in more terrifying details. They said that they had seen a man ram the abandoned car into a Saturn Outlook SUV being driven by a woman. The man got out, shot the woman, and then moved her body into the back before driving off. Following further investigation, authorities managed to link the stolen Saturn to a 40-year-old mother of four named Nikita Davidson. Family members reported Nikita missing, saying they hadn't been able to get a hold of her. The situation came to a tragic end a little over 36 hours later, when authorities found Nikita's missing Saturn in a wooden area in the 2300 block of 18th Place Southwest. Sadly, her body was found in the vehicle's trunk, and it was clear that she had died from gunshot wounds. Roughly 3 hours after the missing SUV was recovered, authorities tracked down and arrested Nikita's 37-year-old boyfriend, Cedric Robertson. Robertson, who is a convicted felon, was reportedly taken into custody as he attempted to move from one abandoned house to another not far from where the remains were found. While no motive has been officially released at the time of this recording, those close to Nikita say that she was trying to get out of her relationship with Robertson at the time of her murder. It's now alleged that Robertson intentionally chased down and rammed Nikita's vehicle, then shot and killed her on the morning that the crime was reported. Robertson is now facing capital murder charges in connection with the killing, as well as first-degree kidnapping and a number of other offenses.
Authorities in Seminole County, Florida say that 3 people have been arrested and that they are still searching for at least one other suspect this week following the disturbing carjacking murder of a local woman, a crime which was partially captured on video and which has now been linked to multiple other investigations. The terrifying incident took place shortly before 6 p.m. on April 11th when the victim, 31-year-old Catherine Aguas Vivas, was driving near the city of Winter Springs. At some point, she started being followed by a green 2002 Acura. She called her husband Miguel, telling him that the car was repeatedly ramming the back of her SUV. Things escalated moments later when Catherine was forced to come to a stop at a red light at the intersection of East Lake Drive and Tuscaloosa Road. As she sat waiting for the light to change, a man wearing a black hoodie and Halloween mask got out of the Acura and started walking towards her vehicle. He was armed with a gun and proceeded to point the weapon at Catherine through the window before getting in the back. Not long after, both the Dodge Durango that the 31-year-old was driving and the green Acura made a U-turn and left the scene. The unsettling encounter was filmed by several onlookers who realized that they had just witnessed a carjacking and called for help. Sadly, the situation only got more devastating hours later when Catherine's SUV was found at a construction site in Osceola County. The vehicle had been torched, and a body believed to be the 31-year-old's was found inside. Spent bullet casings were also discovered at the scene. After launching an investigation, authorities were able to arrest the man allegedly seen in the disturbing video footage getting into Catherine's car. He has since been identified as 28-year-old Jordanish Torres Garcia and was taken into custody on April 19th. Detectives say that not only was Garcia linked to the green Acura in the video, but a Facebook profile picture showed him wearing the same outfit as the man in the footage. While this is a promising development, the case has only gotten stranger from here. Police now say that they believe Catherine was targeted, though so far they aren't sure why. Not only that, but the crime has since been linked to other ongoing investigations. The first of these investigations is the murder of a 39-year-old tow truck driver named Juan Luis Cintron Garcia. Juan was found shot to death inside his home just one day before Catherine was carjacked, and detectives say that the same type of ammunition was found at this crime scene as was found near Catherine's Dodge Durango. Not only that, but on March 19th, Juan apparently towed the same green Acura that was seen in the carjacking footage. The car was illegally parked at an apartment complex. The other investigation that the carjacking has been linked to is a drug case involving a couple named Monica Sabel Soto and Giovanni Hernandez. The pair's Orlando area home was searched, during which a gun and fentanyl were reportedly recovered. Soto was arrested after she was allegedly witnessed receiving a 3-kilogram shipment of cocaine through the mail. The couple became of interest to authorities after Catherine's brother Luis went into her iCloud account and discovered that Hernandez was one of the last people that Catherine had spoken to before the carjacking. He is currently wanted in connection with the case, though at this time remains at large. The final person to be arrested so far is a deputy with the Orange County Sheriff's Office named Francisco Chicon. According to reports, Chicon's wife is a childhood friend of Catherine's husband Miguel and is now accused of illegally accessing and passing sensitive information to him and Catherine's brother about the investigation. Detectives had said that they do not consider Miguel and Luis to be persons of interest, but they are convinced that Miguel in particular knows more about the situation than what he is telling police. At the time of this recording, the bizarre and disturbing crime officially remains a mystery. The case is still under investigation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.